Welcome to Sew Very Easy. My name is Laura. And do you have any of that fabric that's just too pretty to cut up? Well, I have a project that can showcase that fabric, and you will leave it in big pieces. And when you are done, you are going to have a beautiful quilt, because we're going to treat that fabric as art pieces, like a piece of art that you would put on your wall. However, this is a quilt, and it takes nice big pieces. So I'm going to start with 6 fat quarters, and you might need a little bit of extra fabric just to fill in some little spots. Now with your big pieces of fabric, just square them up and make sure all of the edges are straight, and it doesn't have to be square. They can be rectangular. These are 17 inches by 22 inches because that's what the fat quarters squared up to be. This is a little bit shorter than 17 by 22, but as long as all of the edges are nice and square, that's all you'll need to do to start. Now we're going to consider this art, and this is going to be wall art. Your surface is going to be the wall. Now if you can get a big flat surface, this will definitely help. And if you can get a large mat or put a couple of mats together, it'll save your surface from your pins. Now we're going to take these large pieces, we're going to put them on the wall, and we're going to overlap them, filling a very big space. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the piece of art that I like best. It'll be in the middle of where all of the wall art's going to be. Then I will take my second piece. From there, I'm just able to place the pieces of fabric, overlapping and underlapping, until I have all of the pieces the way I want them. Now just keep overlapping, underlapping, stick some in, stick some on the outside. You just need to have your entire surface covered, and you can follow your cut lines to keep the pattern straight. And you just need to fill up the entire surface. If there is a piece that is left blank, you will need to fill it. So just make sure the entire surface is covered and it's pleasing to the eye. If you want, you could put a piece on crooked. It's very important that your fabric is pressed and flat. Now we need to frame each piece of art. And I'm going to use fabric that is high contrast to the artwork. Start with a 3.5 inch piece and fold them together so that the wrong sides are touching, because you are going to need the right side out. And stitch it together with a 1/4 inch. Then go to the iron and press it open and flat to the back, because this is the side that is going to frame the artwork. Now you need to make strips big enough to go all the way around each individual piece of art. Now all my framing material is done. I just need to frame the artwork. Place the seam side over top of the seams, even if they're overlapping. And then just tuck it inside. And you're going to go along and you're going to frame every single one of these, overlapping and then laying them out. Now when you place your strips down, some of the corners are on the top, so they are going to need to be mitered, and it's very easy to miter. Mark your corner, take it to the iron. Let me show you. Okay, to do a mitered corner, mark where you want your corner to be and take your piece to the iron. And I like to just pin it onto the ironing board and pin that corner where you want that point to be to the ironing board. And when you pull up the fabric, you can see that it already wants to do that 45-degree angle. Keeping your fabric straight, you can just pin it in again. And then just with your hand, you're going to mark your 45 and then press it with an iron. Once it's pressed, you can take the pins out and you have it already there to put on top of your quilt. Place down all of your frames, and you don't have to frame the outside because that is going to be done last. And make sure there are no raw edges showing, so everything is tucked in. Now we have to attach all of these pieces together. Well, the easiest way is to baste it with a basting glue. Now this is a temporary basting glue, so it will come out in the wash, but it will hold the layers together until I can get to sew it. And if you don't want to use a basting glue, well, you will need to pin your borders down on both sides all the way around. Now to glue it, you're just going to run a little bit of glue on each side of where the raw seams are going to be. You don't need to worry about the one over here because that's going to be trimmed off when all of this is dry. So just do a couple of dollops of glue on both sides, lay your frame back down. Now make sure you let it dry good and dry because you're going to want to pick up this entire thing in one piece. Now once the glue has all dried, then you need to take this to the machine and sew each of these borders down. So put some pins in the heavier places and a few places all over just to hold it in. And then go to the machine and stitch down on the sides of each of these frames. Not going into the fabric, just stitching as close as you can to the frame. So the frames are all stitched down and well, it's now one big piece of fabric. Now if you flip it over, you will be able to cut off the extra fabric that hung over when you overlapped things. So you can cut off that fabric. Be careful not to cut the front though. So once all the pieces have been cut, take it to the iron and give it a good press so it's nice and flat because now you're going to square it up. So once you finish squaring it up, we need to put a border on it. And I'm going to start with 4 inches. Now you can choose whatever size border you want. And you need to take that 4-inch border and sew it on all 4 sides. 4-inch border is on and the seams have been pressed out towards the border. And that will save bulk being in these areas. If you want, you can leave it this way. But I want to maintain the consistency of these frames. So I've made enough frame to go all the way around. And you will put the border all the way around, mitering each corner just as you did inside the quilt. And let me show you how to join the 2 seams to join together. So I've gone all the way around and now I need to join these 2. So take one edge and tuck it in 1/4 inch, even a little bit more than 1/4 inch. And just press it with your fingers. Then you will make this piece just a little bit longer and you're going to tuck it in. Now, if you have a pair of tweezers, well, they're kind of handy. And when it's all tucked in, you will be able to sew it right down as you go all the way around. Frame has been put on and stitched all the way along the edges and it's done. It just needs to be sandwiched and quilted. Now when you quilt this, quilt each block individually and do not quilt the frames, and the frames will pop up and this will look like its own individual artwork on a wall. My art collage is done. Quick, fast, easy. And what's really nice about it, I get to use those big pieces of fabric that, well, I just didn't want to cut into. And it was very little sewing. So this can be done in a day. It just needs to be now sandwiched and quilted. I'll put a link in the description from the fabric lineup from Timeless Treasures. And as always, thank you for joining me today on Sew Very Easy. Feel free to subscribe. And as always, come on back and let's see what we're sewing next time in the sewing room. Bye for now.